Hi, Sportster Paul here with a 1982 Iron Sportster, cast iron cylinder and heads. We're going to get the heads off today, and as we take it off, we'll explain how to put them back on, so hopefully you can use this video for both. Prerequisites, if you're like me at least. The service manual, this covers 79 to 85, got ours. Put that here, and then as important is the parts manual. So this is a 79 to 85 parts manual. Things like, I was just noticing, well, are there supposed to be washers? I know there's a motor mount that goes up here, right? It has a side hole into the frame, and there's this goofy little tab, horrible system. They did this in 77 for the cost reduction redesign when AMF gave Harley-Davidson a lot of money, and apparently the engineers forgot how to design a motor. There's a tab here, but the parts book will show you all the little washers and stuff. You'll know at least the design intent, what Harley intended to put it together. We'll get into taking the rocker boxes off and doing all that next video. But for now, we just want to get the heads off. Sitting like this, it's easy because you can get a torque wrench or whatever right here. In the bike, it's horrible because the frame rail, it's offset because this part of the motor bangs into the swing arm. So the whole motor's off about 2 inches this way because the swing arm here bangs into the back of the clutch basket. So that means the frame rail is offset a little, almost over these 12.7/16 is what I use. 12.7/16 socket fits this. So it makes it a lot tougher. We'll go over, you need a universal. It's a little bit of grief. Sometimes these rocker boxes aren't clearanced enough, and as you back up, it actually binds, all the normal Harley fun stuff. Okay, where should we start? First, I should mention, I put this off for months because I was missing 2 head bolts all this time. And I've had dozens. I sold them on eBay probably, didn't realize. So I went to, did I go Amazon or eBay? Sorry, I can't remember. Probably eBay. And got Colony, name brand, Colony 9212-16, CAD-plated head bolt set. High quality, strength, heat treated, and CAD-plated 12-point replacement heads fit Sportster 1973 to 1985. So we'll replace all of these. The other thing you need, a place to put the parts, right? This is from hanging around. I used to work for free at a motorcycle shop, Duncan Keller's Yankee Ingenuity in San Jose, California. And you start learning how a shop handles things can make sense, where they tag it and you know what belongs to what. Just having a bin. This one unfortunately got blown out on the bottom, but we have an emergency, a nice clean stainless steel, all scrubbed out. If there's one thing I object to on a lot of the fix-it videos, cleanliness. This is like operating. Imagine the doctor's got you cut open. Would you want a bead blaster over there putting junk in the air? Would you want some grunt? I washed this and scrubbed it meticulously clean, even though used parts, old dirty parts are going in there. That same principle we talked to about the other stuff, if you get a chance, if you can wet this thing down and blow it off, wash it with not a pressure washer, that gets too much, just a hose, clean it off, because that's just less dirt to fall into machinery. You can see here, we've taken the oil lines and the rocker and the push rods off on previous shows, so we got that covered up here, even though we're going to take this whole engine apart by the time we're done. So, what else do we want to talk about? You got the place for the parts. Let's start with the intake. Okay, so we'll pretend it's in your motorcycle. So, I got to learn from Bill Andrew, who worked at Duncan's shop. I think he's in New Jersey now. He said, never what we used to call a gravy lick, where you can shave some time, try to put the carb and air filter and all that on, take it off as one, put it on. Always separate the carburetor from this manifold. This happens to be an old cast iron one. I don't know cast iron, aluminum. It's heavier. It won't hold as much heat. Its specific heat of iron is less than aluminum. I don't know. So the first lesson is good clamps. Now, here's the factory clamps. Can you see those? Here, I'll take a picture. Take a picture right next to these. So you can get them all in the shot. Good. The factory clamps have Phillips head screws. They got this long thing, and you can open them up. You can completely open them and slip them around. They're okay, but the Phillips always gets galled out because air leak here will blow your motor up. I've burned a couple of pistons having an air leak here. These heads have been converted to O-rings, so it's an O-ring head, I think. We'll get into it a little. I'm not sure exactly what we're getting into. These clamps are S&S style. I don't know if S&S even still sells clamps, but it's got, you'll just be able to see when we get these off. Let's see, this doesn't go in our parts box because that's extra. So what I like to do, people get big wrench and you can break these, strip them off. Not needed. Come here, find the blue. Craftsman is 3/8. That's what these happen to fit. And you can go like this and look at that. And off they come. Now, there's no O-ring. As a matter of fact, I just installed this before the video so that you could see kind of what's going on. See how far apart. Usually you don't have to get them all the way loose. That's why these screws here are so long. And how you put it on, you know, make sure the air filter, you got it clearance so you can get this stuff off when the bike's all together. I like to get it so you can adjust it even when there's a air filter. There we go. So this way you're not putting too much torque. This is plenty if you've got it set up right. So there it is. We've got our parts things. So intake manifold is this. Yeah, so these are early, even though it says 82, these heads got to be pre-79 because they've got O-rings in them. They took rid of the O-ring, this little step groove, and put a rubber band. And when you use a rubber band, you absolutely have to support the carburetor, either with the strap here or some of the later heads like these have threaded holes right here. Because that rubber band thing, it'll loosen those bands up and crack them and break them, and you'll burn, usually you burn the front piston, and that's a motor job. So these are good because you can really reef them, and the style. Let's see if we can take another picture for the zoom in. You can see the difference here. See the difference. So we want to save our S&S. So I got two different styles. One has a little castellated prevailing torque nut, the other's plain. This is just demonstration stuff for the video. So we got that off. Now is a good time to talk about putting it back together. Weirdest thing you've ever seen. When you put a motor together, a whole top end, you do not tighten the base nuts and you do not tighten the head bolts until, you tighten the carburetor. And the theory is, because everything's so sloppy in a Harley, and what's a tolerance? The theory is by tightening these bands, it rotates the cylinder and the head as much as it can till the angle here is perfect. And this is in the service manual. That's why you should buy it. So that's one of the weird things. Now, if you're leaving the cylinders, just doing the heads, well, you probably can. I mean, it worked before, although some guys are meticulous enough, loosen the base nuts, set this up, tighten this, tighten everything else, loosen this, tighten it back again, make sure everything's happy. Of course, it needs the O-rings. It makes it a little tougher, but you can loosen these up. So that's the first trick when you put this back together. Don't tighten the cylinders and heads before you tighten this. It's backwards, I don't want to use profanity. Get this lined up, and you can see that that's one of the things that you should do. Okay, good. This is pretty darn good, because you'll see the gap, right? Is it uniform on both sides? Back to what Bill Andrew taught me at Duncan's shop, never gravy lick it with, I'll just do the carburetor, whole thing. When you just do the manifold, when you get it snapped in, you haven't tightened it, you can take your finger and you can reach in here and you can feel all around. Did the O-ring get pinched, right? Feel around here. Is it all straight? And then as you tighten, for me, obviously you can rotate this way and this way, right? Is that clear? this way and this way, right? So usually, as you kind of wiggle it and tighten a little, it finds true and it kind of gets all straight, and you can just tell when it's lined up the best it can be. And if you've done the right procedure, after you get that square, then you can reef the head bolts, the cylinder base nuts, and then the head bolts. So that's that trick. What's next trick? The exhaust. I should mention, I got all these exhaust clamps here. I once broke this cast iron part by using these cool guy exhaust clamps, right? It's just, that's a big bike or something, it's too big. But trust me, one of these will fit. And these are the kind that's got a hex, and then it's threaded. I'll take a picture of this thing. They work great. They are strong enough, they will crush your exhaust pipe and get here. Mine, I reefed it so much, it snapped this off. Thankfully, I lived in San Jose where Kenny Peugeot, the welder, lived, and he put a steel spigot, welded cast iron to steel, lasted for a decade after he did that. So then I learned better to take a little die grinder with like a little diamond blade and slot the pipe back a little bit further, right? Usually the slots aren't far enough. They don't go the whole length of this cast iron spigot. So zing, zing, clean that exhaust pipe up. Then it does not take as much effort. See, we got one still in the bag. What's this? Exhaust clamp fits all XL 57 to 85. So there it is. There's the right ones. It is custom chrome, which I tend to like living in San Jose. This is 11-101. The factory number 65273-88T, which was something released in 1988, which kind of surprises me. And then $14 and some cents, probably $50 now, the way inflation. Now that's the that's the aftermarket, just the way those S&S clamps are aftermarket. The real, can I find the real clamps? I think here's some. I emptied out the parts stash. The real clamps can, I think on really old like K models, they're like this, where it's got a, can you see this or on this camera? It's got a flange on it. I'll take a picture of this thing. And then, I think those were really early. Thin steel with a little L flange. And then sometime, here's some more like S&S style. These might be for exhaust, I'm not sure. But then there was like an intermediate that I think was factory. That was, here's something in the bag. 65519-52B. Okay, so this should have been early factory. Because 52 is when the K model came out, the flathead version of the Sportster. It says muffler clamp. So this is meant to hook the muffler to the pipe. So it's not meant to spigot here. Like I thought that L one. This is where you've got a muffler and thing, and it's got a little bend here. You see. Well, let me get one out of the bag. It'll be easier to see. And so it's got this little bend here. Right? See that? So when you clamp it, this lip hits this, and then the clamp force pulls the band down. All cool guy stuff. We will have to, well, we're not going to bolt exhaust on this, so I won't put the clamps that would fit here. So you got the exhaust off. Now comes a headache. Pretend it's in the bike. The way I started in life, you need a 7/16 12-point socket, not 6 like a bolt head. It's got extra points. That's what fits these, serrated things. We're going to put this in. See, already cleaning up. We got our parts bin. Oh, it works out great. And that's what fits. Now, like I said, F. I say I'm cheating. These are all loose. F the motor's out. Piece of cake, right? This has got that little extra, so it's got a, you see it? It's got a wheel here so you can turn it with your fingers. Goes here, goes here. This was a tough one because the rocker box hasn't been machined out enough. Here, here, easy money, right? Not a problem. But with the frame rail there, you can't do this. So you need a universal. Now, there's universals and there's universals. Here's a universal. You see it? It's gigantic. Does it have a brand on here? Craftsman. Yeah, 3/8 universal, right? Because that way you can get it and you can kind of bend this thing and get the thing off of the frame, angled off to how's the sky cam doing. See that? You can kind of get past this big frame rail here. And of course that screw, you got a torque wrench now, that's screwing up your torque. Gosh knows what's happening. You get this 4-lobe universal. But I did want to show you the universal I use, which is a snap-on universal. Let's see on this side cam if you can see, right? Both 3/8 universals, how big the Craftsman, how little the high quality, high strength steel. And it's snap-on. If you do break them, I'd want a couple in the toolbox. So not any universal, but a really good universal. And you go here, and you go here, and you can get in, and with that frame rail here, you can get it out. Now, because the torque is so meaningless, because I have never had a head job where I didn't get a little leakage from the oil holes in and a little carbon on the pistons. I don't know, I tried a plane. We'll talk about that when we get the heads off. I did something. I started doing something that's a little crazy. Imagine it's in the bike. You got no clearance. A cheap Craftsman 7/16 wrench. The combination side is also 12 point. And look at this. It goes, well, sometimes you put it angled down. Goes right there. Tighten, loosen, and then every mechanic's got some kind of wino setup. This is the red thing with the slot for a little bottle jack. And this side, once it's smashed with a hammer, was big enough to do that. So I had a cheater bar so I could tighten it. There, I tightened it a little and loosened it. And then what I would do is I would take a good torque wrench, snap on, although this is old and used, and I'm not even sure where it came from. That might not be a good torque wrench, even though it's snap-on, right? The most trustworthy torque wrench is the bending beam kind, because that's simple physics. You bent that bar, that's how many foot-pounds. This one, it's got the clicker type. Well, they wear out. You're supposed to calibrate them. It's got stuff to do. But what I took to doing, I am going wrong on this. You got to have the socket. So you're putting it back together, right? Taking it apart, it'll be easy. So you can get on here. The front head you can reach, right? And if you don't go too high, you get all this sussed out. There's room here because the frame rail comes up about here. So you go here and this was loose. There, okay? So I do these two and say, okay, that's 65. Well, I use Loctite, not Loctite, anti-seize. That's another thing to show you folks. See, this is going all over the place. Here it is. I used to use the Permatex in the little pot. Problem with that is, junk falls in there. So now I've taken to the Permatex tube, anti-seize lubricant. Tells you reduce 20% when you put it on because it's lubricating those threads. Some guys just dip it in oil. You shouldn't do it dry when you put this back together. The reason I like the tube is it doesn't get contaminated from sitting open on the bench with all the junk falling in it. So there's that. I'm spending more time on the put together side because that's a tough side, right? That's what you really care about. So as I said, click, 65 I think is nominal. I can look in the book. It's up to you. over torque is not good, right? Then you start warping the cylinders and then you don't get a flat surface, so the right amount of torque. But what I do then is I got this Mickey Mouse thing, and I go to the front and I kind of feel, when does it move? About how much pressure is 65 foot-pounds. Then I'd go here and try to replicate the feel, not changing over my hand, right? Just from front to back, 10 seconds apart. So, little Mickey Mouse, but this is the way I've been doing it in older years, right? So let's get this back. Now the actual job is going to take 2 seconds. We talked about we don't need the universal because we're going to take advantage of the fact the motor's out of the frame. We don't need I'm a real big, Tim Pott at Howard Cooper Volkswagen in 1974 taught me, always put the tools back in the box. I said, but you're going to need it in 10 minutes. He said, yeah, you'll know just where it is, in the box, where it's supposed to be, especially when you're working on cars, and a $70 wrench once drove away, back in 1970. That's probably a $600 wrench now. So where are we? We've got this covered up, fairly clean, not as clean as we like. If I was in the shop, I'd have air, and I'd blow all this stuff off, making sure I didn't get this exposed. But hopefully I didn't over-tighten this. Amazing how much you can get to 65 foot-pounds. Now the old head bolts are going to go aside because I got this new set, and we want it all ended up with new. Let's do here, here. Oh, that's the one I torqued, huh? See, even a short little wrench, you can get a lot of torque, 65 foot-pound. What was I going to say? Oh, a Harley is designed, right? I don't even think you have to take this little motor mount tab on the later models. On the early model, there's a thing coming down in the center, but there's no sump on the motor. So you can get the motor in and out, even though you got this thing sitting here. But in both cases, the rocker boxes stay on. You can't get the rocker boxes off, I don't think, even on the front. I don't think. I have to check that. So, got them all loose. This has got the cool guy thing. Do I have a speed wrench? I can't even remember if I own a speed wrench or not. I guess not. Oh, you get to watch. What can we talk about while we do this? So this is I have the spark plugs out. That's not a good idea because dirt can fall in the hole, right? Now this motor I'm going to take completely apart. If only to make videos and show you. Oh, look, there's no washers on these old ones. See, because that's part of it. That's why the kit gives you these flat washers. See them? Thick. They're not normal, everyday flat washers. So I am glad, one of them has a flat washer. One doesn't. These hardly ever screw up. This might be something to make a couple bucks on eBay. So we talked about the service manual, we talked about the parts manual. Some people actually have both the factory manual, the Bible, and a Haynes manual. But Haynes is good. I mean, they're descriptive, they got nice pictures. This was a screw up. See, it's binding now because let me see if I can get this. Will it focus? Yes. You can see, this is a casting, this rocker box, right? Castings are all over the place. Not half an inch. Are they a couple millimeters this way, couple. So to make sure you can get these head bolts, they come in and they machine 2 little pockets here. But because it's a Harley and the head bolt, or the rocker box, it's a horrible thing, it's not really located. So as loose as the bolts are, the rocker box moves around. So if you can't get on this at all ever, well then maybe you loosen them, right? No point in taking them off. You may have to tighten them again because the head comes out this way. Heads come off. No, I'm thinking wrong. Why? They have to if you leave this motor mount on. Sorry, my memory's getting, see, it's binding up. Oh boy. Well, let's see if we can get it out. And this is normal, right? This is the kind of human suffering Sportsters are known for. That's why we like them so much, right? Okay, let's get this one. See, if I remember, this one went in, right? Because these two were missing and I put them in right before the video started. Is the video going? Red, red, red. All right, audio. Yeah, we got audio. All right. And there's that trick too. There we go. You'll note with the washer, right, all the way on, it won't go in. The washer interferes. So then you got to do now let the washer fall down and lay on top of the head, then put the bolt in. So that was a fun little lesson learned. It's been a while since I did a top end. I've done several. Okay, hopefully being this loose. And see, you might have to lift this up. Oh, you can imagine if it's in the frame, how much joy this will be. See, I can't get on that bolt. And it's not loose enough. I love having problems like this because I hate people that, practice and know exactly how, so they don't look bad. There's no looking bad or good. There's just the normal human suffering. It's interesting because I got this thing in. Okay, let's get what I said. Where's a half inch? Half inch. See if we can do this. Come on. Not only is this bad because motor mount here, this gasket always leaks, right? The old ones don't do that, but this one does. So let's loosen this up. Like I say, you can imagine the kind of joy you'd have in the and get the deep well half inch. Might be doing this with a wrench and if we're lucky, get a hammer. See why I like working in the air conditioning with maybe that's enough. And of course, it's always the one where the frame rail's right here. I did loosen it up. I'm not sure I'm off. There we go. And then obviously, get the washer. Don't let stuff fall. So there's our full set of head bolts. See, the exhaust kind of sticks down here, so I always thought it has to go out that way. But these studs would get in the way. And I'm more used to the early models. Anyway, trust me, in the frame, the design intent is you can get the heads off. So, oh, no head gaskets. This was obviously a trial run. Brand new. These are fresh. Be a shame because I want to take the rocker boxes off to show you that stuff. But this is a brand new setup. Fresh paint and everything. Can you see? Right? Beautiful. So, I don't know, I guess if you set it like this, it's better to set it down. I should have some spark. I'll go get some spark plugs just to plug the hole. Cross hatching here. Show you the condition. I got this in a buy of like 4 or 5 motors and a bunch of other stuff. So this is fresh. That piston, it's amazing how sloppy they are. But that piston has meant everything's cool, everything's new. We'll get to the cylinders next, not next video, not now. And what do I want to do? Probably, some guys like shop towels, some guys right? Nice and clean, or maybe stuff a shop towel down in it. Where were we? How are we doing over here? This is supposed to be a quick video, but nothing's quick, especially if you're counting on it. Oh, I'll show these guys how easy it is to whip the heads off. But it's not, especially in the bike. So this is one this is one of the used ones. No washer on this one. I am so glad, because I thought about, well, maybe I could just buy one bolt. I needed 2 bolts here, but I wouldn't have had the washers, and they're not standard Home Depot washers. They're thicker. So now I got nice. Colony says cad plated. That should mean cadmium, but I really doubt. Cadmium's really dangerous to plate. If you heat it up and it fumes, it'll get in your blood and kill you. And it kills you trickier than lead. It's a heavy metal, right? Trickier than lead, where it just builds up, and then all of a sudden you're dead. With lead poisoning, you're sick, and you know you're sick, and maybe you can stop eating the lead paint or whatever was making you sick. Is this one binding? A little bit. There is nothing. Oh, come on. Now this one isn't so bad to get to. See, the problem coming in the side with the wrenches is they go up, the wrench runs out of room. So you can tighten to 60 or wherever you want to set the bolt torque, but you cannot use that little wrench from the side trick. Okay, I think I got it. Up it comes. Same problem. The washer will not come up with the bolt, so you got to work the washer down as you get the bolt up. It's so easy standing, like compared to usually in a gravel driveway. Washer came with it. It's going to go over here, maybe eBay. Let's see if I can get this last one out. You don't even have to, if you can just kind of come from the side and rub, and this is what scratches up all the bolts. Or maybe get it with your finger. This is why I like anti-seize, right? Because you can get this close. See, I can turn it with my fingers. If the head gaskets were on, got it. Okay. So let me come over here. This is one without, come on. Okay, so this is another one without a washer. And like I taught you, put your tools away constantly. This goes here, 1/2 inch. And if you were just going to have the head off and off, you should probably retighten stuff. Don't leave stuff finger tight, because you'll forget. But I know I'm taking that rocker box off next. What's this? This goes on top of the 7/16. That goes in here. It's been a while since I had some fun. This goes here. Do I want to do it like that? No, not really. This is going to blow. I'll have to figure something out. Maybe get some big rubber bands and snap those on. Oh, does the front cylinder look as good? Oh, it sure does. Let's take that picture for your enjoyment. Oh, life is good. So once the things come off, I had a buddy who fixed a cylinder base leak, raising it up, putting a little silicone down there, dropping it down, and because the piston rings never came out of the bore, that was it. Otherwise, in theory, once you pull it apart, new rings and probably at least a ball hone, zing zing. This one looks brand new, so I probably can reuse the rings. I don't think it's ever been run, right? There's no evidence of any heat. So let's take a look at this guy. I can see some hardware missing here too. Brand new, still got paint marks. Right? So that's good. I got some new stuff here. Now let's see if I can move this here. Move this way. Move this way. And how strong am I? Probably not strong enough. Cantilever it out. And then, see, ready to go to clean up. Some guys use the Weiss dishwasher. I've never, because aluminum used to be bad for dishwashers. So, heads are off. I think we went over the tricks to get them back on. Anti-seize, the intake manifold tricks, S&S clamps, new bolts, right? Especially if the old bolts are all torn up. Because they're so miserable to get out, a lot of times they get all chewed up on the corners because guys are coming in at an angle like I was doing, right? Rounding them off. And then they rust and look bad. Like I say, I suspect Colony zinc plates them. And they call it CAD because saying cadmium would be a legal requirement. Maybe they are CAD. I mean, overseas you can get all kinds of dangerous plating done that you wouldn't want to do here. So, sorry I went so long, but I'm glad there was all these little quirks that you got to see. Hopefully, getting the head off shouldn't be that hard, even with the thing. Putting it back on, a little trickier. And then next we're going to, as a matter of fact, the commenter asked, are you going to get into a rocker box? And even though these look brand new, I will get into the rocker boxes and show you that, because there's always some tricks with a little oiling port in the exhaust rocker that always gets plugged up. Every motor I've worked on has been like that. It'll be curious to see if there's lithium grease and stuff like this just got built. Okay, so Sportster Paul, those are the cylinder heads. Next we'll do the rocker boxes and probably do both just to be more thorough. I figure you can always fast forward. Better to be more thorough. I think people are liking that from the comments I'm reading. Okay, catch you folks next time. Bye now.